going through this series in 1 Corinthians. And I thought we'd have a little Q&A on the series so far, and we do the Q&A just before the sermon rather than after. So I don't know if there's any questions on what we've had so far. Yeah, Tim, question, Ben, sorry. Well, that's a stupid question. Anyway, well, let's forget that. Let's just go straight to the passage. Page 961, verse 35. That was a joke, by the way, as you're about to find out. I'm not being that harsh to my friend Ben. Someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body do they come? You foolish person. I love that. It's the most comedy Q&A in the whole Bible, isn't it? So someone asked that, and Paul says, that is a stupid question. We'll think in a bit about why he thinks it's a stupid question, but then he answers it anyway. So hear the answer. You foolish person, what you sow doesn't come to life unless it dies. And what you sow is not the body that is to be, but a bare seed, perhaps of wheat or some other grain. But God gives it a body as he's chosen, and to each kind of seed, its own body. Not all flesh is the same. There's one kind for humans, another kind for animals, another for birds, another for fish, as excellently illustrated by the children's talk earlier. There are heavenly bodies and earthly bodies, but the glory of the heavenly is of one kind, and the glory of the earthly is of another. There is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for star differs from star in glory. So it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It's raised in power. It's sown a natural body. It's raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, then there is also a spiritual body. Thus it's written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. But it's not the spiritual that's first, but the natural, and then the spiritual. The first man was from the earth, a man of dust. The second man is from heaven. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are of the dust. And as is the man of heaven, so also are those who are of heaven. Just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the man of heaven. These are some of my favorite verses, particularly when friends of mine have died. And I'll share with you why in a moment. But we want to start with this question, this Q&A question. With what kind of bodies will they come? How are the dead raised? With what kind of bodies will they come? And Paul says it's a stupid question. We're thinking in this whole series about the resurrection, not the resurrection of Jesus that happened about 2,000 years ago, but the resurrection of everybody else who trusts in Jesus that has not happened yet. So the Bible says that one day Jesus is coming back, and when he comes back, all of the dead who've fallen asleep in Christ will be raised. And this is my ChatGPT idea of what it might look like. If you look at the graphic, that graphic, here's a little English village with loads of, typical graveyard, and suddenly all the graves are emptied because the dead, those who died trusting in Jesus, are all suddenly raised. That is a future day that we're expecting as Christians. So looking back on it, the resurrection of Jesus, looking forward on it, the resurrection of everybody else who's trusted him. And we're thinking about that all the way through this chapter. It's all about that. And then the question comes, what's that actually going to be like, though? How will the dead be raised? What kinds of body will they have? And I think the point is this. It just seems inconceivable to us, and therefore it seems untrue. It seems inconceivable, and therefore untrue. By inconceivable, I mean in the technical sense, you are not able to conceive of it. You're not able to imagine what that could be like. You don't have any sort of mental reference point for it. And therefore, it seems like in such a fantasy world that you doubt it could be true altogether. And I think that's why Paul's a bit impatient. He says, what a stupid question. Because it's probably an objection from someone who doesn't actually believe in the resurrection. They go, what could that be like anyway? How would that even make sense? So let me try and give you that problem. I mean, it's not just a matter of people who have been buried in graves, like in English countryside like that? What about people who've been cremated? How are they going to be raised? Like, where would you even find all the atoms of the cremated person? Because, a lot of it became carbon dioxide, and then it's gone into all sorts of different trees. And how would it even be possible to find all those atoms and put someone back together? And that doesn't even make sense, think somebody. And so what Paul is going to try and do in this section is to make it conceivable. Instead of being inconceivable, he's going to help us to conceive of what it could be like, so that we realize this actually is real. Okay, so that's the question. How will the dead be raised? With what kind of body do they come? Well, it's a stupid question, he says. Let me give you an analogy from farming, or from forestry, or from horticulture. Okay, you plant something, and then something grows. So, for example, you plant, and I'm not very good at forestry, but I do know if you plant an acorn, you get a oak tree. Very good. You know about as much about forestry as I do. And if you plant a conker, you get a chestnut tree. Exactly. And they're the only two that I know, but there's others as well. A sycamore seed, that's too obvious. You plant a sycamore seed, you get a sycamore tree. Okay, that's too obvious. But the point is, when you plant something in the ground, something incredible grows. And Paul starts there, you think, what's that got to do with the resurrection? Well, I think the point is this. Firstly, the Creator does this. So God is in the business of making something amazing out of something that looks really small. I mean, so God, the Creator, he gives it a body as he chooses. So he decides to make incredible oak trees out of little acorns. And it turns out we know a bit about the mechanism for that now. So in the acorn, small little acorn, you have DNA, because plants have DNA, same as humans have DNA. And the DNA double helix in the acorn is the computer programming for building an acorn, for building an oak tree. And God's designed this whole genetic machinery so that you plant an acorn and it gets wet and it starts to produce roots, and then it produces a shoot, and then all the different bits of the shoot know what they're supposed to be. And I'm supposed to be a trunk, and I'm supposed to become a branch, and I'm supposed to be leaves, and I'm supposed to make new acorns. And God's in this incredible sort of genetic machinery. God, the Creator, gives an acorn an oak tree body. That's amazing. And he does that for all different species. And he even does it cosmologically. So he talks about the sun and the moon and the stars and different kinds of stars. One of my favorite students on the, or you're not meant to have favorite students, but one of my favorite students at the Cornhill training course where I teach was a guy called Philip Young, who was a postdoc astrophysicist, or postdoc theoretical astrophysicist in Cambridge. And then he came to do some Bible training as well. He's hoping to go as a missionary overseas. And Philip, I loved him because he's a lovely Christian guy, but he's also an extraordinary geek. He just sort of knew every space fact. His job was basically not to look through telescopes, but to sit in front of equations and work out mathematically what probably ought to exist. And then somebody else looked through a telescope and they go, "You're right, that does exist." He goes, "I know, my calculations already told you that." So he's a sort of incredible geek. And he combined cosmology and being a Christian. He could tell me about all the different kinds of stars that God's made out of other things. And it turns out, a bit like acorns, we now know that stars are also factories for other stars, and black holes are factories for universes. And it's just mind-blowing. But Paul knows this. He says there's a Creator. And because there's a Creator, he can make incredible things out of other small things. So don't think that a future resurrected body is inconceivable. Shouldn't the God who can make suns and Milky Ways and oak trees, and surely he can do that, can't he? I mean, he's a creator. I mean, that's kind of, he's got past form in this. You put something small into the ground, you get something amazing out the ground. That's what it's going to be like. It shouldn't be too hard to imagine it when you look at some of the other things that God has created out of small things. And I think there's a further point. I put this on the handout if you want to follow. The tree comes from the thing that is planted. I think that's important because in the resurrection, the resurrected version of me, it will still be me. It's connected to the thing that's been buried, which is me, right? So you bury me, and out the ground comes resurrected me. It's still me. In fact, you can call it the same name. It'll still be called Andrew. So Andrew into the ground, and then resurrected Andrew out the ground. Resurrected Andrew could be pretty different to the Andrew that you buried. Just like an oak tree is pretty different from an acorn, but it's still connected. It's still the same thing. So you could give the acorn a name, and you can call it, this is the Andrew acorn. And then when it grows, you call it the Andrew tree, because it's that acorn transformed. And that's important, because when we think about our bodies, the body that is buried is not the body that's going to be. You're not going to be exactly the same as you are now, but it's still going to be you. You buried and you resurrected, but a more glorious, more wonderful you. And that's point 2 on the handout. Just like you plant acorns and you get oak trees, just like you plant conkers and you get horse chestnuts, just like you plant a black hole and you get a galaxy, in that kind of way, when you're buried in the ground, and that's why his analogy about planting things works. So I planted some sunflowers recently, and you have to put them, 1 centimeter down and cover them with soil. With human beings, you normally do 2 meters down? I don't know exactly how deep grave diggers go, and you cover them with soil. Same principle. You're planting them. It's like gardening. You're planting a human in the ground, and what grows out the ground is not going to be the same as what you planted, but it will still be them, but them transformed. And I love these verses, and these are some of my favorite verses for funerals, because it at the same time captures the horribleness of death and the incredible transformation that we're looking forward to at the resurrection. He says, so it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown, what is planted is perishable. That's a good description of our bodies now. Our bodies are perishable. And you start to find this out when you get older, I think. So maybe when you're young, you get ill occasionally. When you get older, things about you start going irreversibly wrong. And the thing actually that for me this works is dentistry. Because I think that's for lots of us, it's the early sign. Because when things go wrong with your teeth, it's permanent, isn't it? You get a hole in your teeth, you get a filling. It's never going to grow back into the hole. You get a teeth extracted, you get a false teeth. That's permanent. You're never going to get a new teeth in the hole. So from the point that children get their adult teeth, from then on, it's all downhill. It's just it's a tangible representation of things that are going wrong and won't get better again. And of course, when you get older, there's other things that go wrong that don't get better again. Your arteries start to fur up and they don't defur. Your liver starts to get fatty and doesn't get unfatty, and etc. Perishable. Raised, imperishable. I mean, it's an extraordinary thought. It's almost inconceivable, but maybe you can just begin to conceive it. A body that will never wear out, that will never grow old. It's not like this one. Because old age, I don't know if we understand even the biology of aging, but old age happens to all of us, and a body that's in good condition now won't be in good condition in 50 years' time, whoever you are. But the resurrection body, 50 years later, will be just as good, because it doesn't perish. Here's another one. It's sown in dishonor. And really, it is. One of my jobs as a vicar means very occasionally I've done funerals, not loads actually, because we're quite a young church, but I've done a few funerals. And it's a privilege actually to be at a funeral of a Christian. But there's nothing very glorious about it. You try to make it nice, the crematorium, you have flowers, and there's flowers there, and there's the favorite music, and the coffin's nice wood and stuff. You make it as nice as you can, but everyone knows it's not very nice. Quite dishonorable. And you press a button and then the coffin's lowered and it goes basically into a furnace, and it's as sanitized as possible, but it's dishonorable. But it's raised in glory. And if you give, I don't know whether God's going to resurrect cremated people at the crematoria. I don't know. I suppose the graves will be resurrected in the graves like that. I don't know whether it's the same, that crematoria, suddenly people are going to start pouring out of them and gas is sucked in the chimney and out come. I don't know how it works. But the point is, it's going to be amazing. It's one of my favorite verses. When I hear someone's died, I often just WhatsApp them this verse. It's one of the most, for me, the most compact ways of saying death is horrible, but the future's amazing in just a few words. It's raised in dishonor. It's sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. Similarly, it's raised in weakness. It's sown in weakness. It's raised in power. It's sown a spiritual, a natural body. It's raised a spiritual body. Can you even begin to imagine what this will be like? I mean, maybe not, because it's sort of nothing like our experience. But it is still you. And we've seen God, the Creator, do this kind of thing before. Look at a new galaxy that's formed. Look at a new tree that's grown. Look at a baby, a tadpole that's become a frog. Look at, I mean, incredible transformations. Expect, conceive of an incredible transformation. Now, the reason this excites me, and I don't know whether it's working for you, but it's sort of putting a bit of flesh on the bones to think this is an actual thing. Because if your vision of heaven is just that it's a kind of floaty nothingness, that used to be my view of it. You know, like what you sit on a cloud, maybe. You talk to fat babies that are flying, sort of Michelangelo heaven. Not very appealing to me. Or maybe like that other Jim Carrey film, Bruce Almighty. You know, everything's just, the exposure's turned up, so it's all a different shade of white. Yeah, no thanks. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about physical, better. You know, like trees are more impressive than acorns, that kind of thing. Like galaxies come out of black holes, that kind of thing. Like it's not like God the Creator saying, well, I tried making a physical universe and I got bored of that, so I just thought now I just have a floatiness. No, God is into creating stuff. He's into creating bodies. He's just got better ones in mind for the ones that he's going to raise from the dead. It's kind of concrete. It's kind of conceivable. But then Paul makes it the most concrete and the most conceivable by pointing us to the one example in the universe of where this has already happened. Namely, the resurrection body of Jesus. You've already got one to compare. It's like you've got it's like the show home where I work at Cornhill, and it's next to the Elephant and Castle development. And there's this sort of massive new flats and a whole kind of corridor in the sky town, I think, just up one level, a bit like the Barbican. It's going to be really cool. All I've seen so far is the CGI version, the CGI fly-through that you can find on YouTube. And there's a show home, apparently. But you see that and you go, oh, yeah, I can kind of conceive it now. I can see what it could be like now from the show home. Jesus is a bit like that. But he's more than a show home. He's like the prototype. He's more than that. He's the first fruits. He's the one who's already done it, so that you can imagine what it could be like. So just think about Jesus' body. It was sown perishable. Even the Son of God had a body that was capable of perishing, of dying. So he's the creator of the universe, but he's got a real human body, and you can whip him as they did. They flogged him. And he bled when they did that. And you can twist a crown of thorns into his head, and that hurts. And you can crucify him, and he dies when you do that. It's Jesus' body is perishable, but raised imperishable. The Jesus he came out of the tomb, he's not dying again, ever. Raised, sown in dishonor. It was dishonorable, wasn't it? The trial and the burial of Jesus. I mean, it was a shameful way to die by crucifixion. And nothing about it was nice to look at. But the resurrection day, wow. You know, 2 angels there to meet you. I kind of help you, sir. I'm looking for Jesus. Oh, he's not here. He's risen. And then the encounters. The reason I got Stacey to read the bit from the Gospels about the risen Jesus is just to make the point that Jesus, when they met him, he wasn't just floaty. He wasn't like a ghost or a sort of semi-physical projected image. They touched him. Touch me and see, he says. A ghost does not have flesh and bones like you see I have. They touch him. And Thomas famously examines his crucifixion scars. Have you got anything to eat, he says. I love that. I sometimes call it the ghost test. Like if you meet a dead relative and you're wondering, is this really them or is it just a ghost? Or is it the resurrection day? The best way to check is firstly touch them, because if it's a ghost, your hand will go through. If you touch them and you meet something physical, and then if you're really unsure, go and get a tin of tuna, open it, and get your formerly dead relative to eat some of the tuna. And if you see the tuna actually disappeared, then you're not imagining it and it's really happening. I mean, obviously you can't do that because your dead relative isn't going to come back, are they, until this day. But on this day, we'll have physical bodies that can eat tins of tuna, although I probably think the fish available will be nicer than that. But physical bodies. When it says here, it's raised a natural body, it's raised a spiritual body. Spiritual doesn't mean floaty, non-real, in your imagination fairy story. That's not what the word spiritual means. The word spiritual means of the spirit. So it's sown a natural body, it's raised a body of the spirit. A physical body, but a physical body empowered and energized by the Holy Spirit. In other words, an amazing version, an upgrade of you. Just like with Jesus. What was sown, what was raised. If you're a Tolkien fan, and J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings guy, he tried to capture it with Gandalf the Grey. He dies, and then he comes back. Gandalf the White. And it's kind of still Gandalf, because he's got the same name, and he's played by the same actor in the movie, but he's kind of also not the same. And that he's trying to capture this. It's still you, but the oak tree version of you, or the resurrected Jesus body version of you, a you 2.0. Can you begin to conceive of it? Can you begin to imagine it? No, not entirely. We don't know exactly what it will be like, but you can conceive of it enough to think this is actually real. Like I say, we've got an example, Jesus' body already. So that's where he goes next, point 3. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. Verse 44 and B. Now, I'd love to talk more about this. I've actually read a whole essay just about this half verse that I read about 20 years ago at Bible college, and I remembered it, and I've read it again this week. It's very hard to understand, but quite profound. And it's just about these few words. I'd love to do the whole sermon on this, but I'm not going to. But I'll summarize it for you. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. What that little verse is saying, it's not just a statement, it's an argument. And it's saying as soon as there was an Adam, as soon as there was a human being, somehow that's already implying to you the resurrection future of the human race. I don't know how that works, but it's saying like God's had in mind the resurrection version of us, even when he made the first humans. It's not like, firstly God makes humans, and then later he goes, oh no, it's all gone wrong, and they've sinned against me. Oh no, they're dying. Oh no, the planet's going to go into nuclear war. Oh, what will I do? And then God comes up with a plan B, which is resurrection. This verse is saying it's built into plan A. As soon as God made human beings, if there's a natural body, if there's this version of us, there's also already implied the spirit-empowered resurrection version of us. The best way I can understand this is if there is an acorn, there's also an oak tree. Like, it's always planned that acorns become God doesn't design them just to be food for squirrels, right? That's not what they're for. They're always destined for a glorious, greater future. And the same to this. So resurrection is not an afterthought. It's kind of built in. It's like you buy a packet of seeds from the gardening website, sunflower seeds. You can use sunflower seeds just in your cereal, can't you? Just eat them. But that's not the most noble future for a sunflower seed. Especially if you buy the gardening version. What you meant to do, you meant to plant it. It's kind of intrinsic to the sunflower seed that it's supposed to become a sunflower. That's this verse, I think. As soon as there's a natural body, God already has in mind the spiritual body. And then he explains how this is true of Jesus. The first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam, Jesus, became a life-giving spirit. It's not the spiritual that's first, but the natural, and then the spiritual. In other words, firstly, you get these bodies, and here we are for however many thousands of years living on the earth with these kinds of bodies, this first. And then in the future, if you zoom forward on the timeline 1 billion years, all you would have would be the next kind of body. So these two kind of bodies, they're like two kind of ages, the age of seeds and the age of trees, or the age of bodies like Adam's and the age of bodies like Jesus's, or the age of weakness and dishonor and perishing, which we're all too familiar with, and the age of imperishable and power and glory and empowered by the Spirit. Can you conceive of it? Can you begin to imagine it? Because the trouble is, it's so outside of experience that it seems fantasy. And Paul's like, it's not fantasy. You've got to get your head around it. Look at the natural world, the incredible transformations that God the Creator is doing all the time. And then look at Jesus and the amazing transformation that happened to him. And then consider yourself. That's the final point in the handout. And it's such an exciting verse, this. I'm just going to read it. I didn't explain it, really. I'll just read it. The first man was from the earth, a man of dust. That's Adam. The second man is from heaven. That's Jesus. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are of the dust. That's us. Just like Adam, perishable, dishonorable, and weak. As is the man of heaven, so also are those who are of heaven in the future, glorious, imperishable, powerful, of the Holy Spirit. And then the promise, just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the man of heaven. We'll be like him in the future. So what's heaven like? What's the future like? It's not like the Michelangelo version, babies and harps and wings and clouds. Not that. And it's not the Hollywood version, everything's white and everything's very boring. It's like this, but better. Like this, transformed, upgraded. What was always in mind when God made this, because he always intended, one day you can plant this and something amazing will grow. That's the future. And so I put a conclusion, the future is conceivable. It's not like, I hope Paul's fleshed out the question enough that you can see kind of what it could be like in the kind of way that stops it being pure fantasy. And you start looking forward to it, and you start daring to believe it, and you start hoping for it. This is our future if you're a Christian, brothers and sisters. It's really good. And therefore, if you're at a funeral, I don't know whether you've been to many. I've been to a few older people funerals. The hardest one is younger people funerals. So a couple of friends sort of my age who both had brain tumours, a guy called Alan and a woman called Rachel, who I was very close to. A friend of Caroline and I called Sheena, quite young, cancer. And then a very good friend of mine, 8-year-old daughter. I didn't actually go, but it was in America, but I was horrible things. Terrible tragedies. No one's pretending as a Christian to put a big fixed smile on your face and think it's all okay. It's not okay. Dishonor, weakness, perishable. But you just planted someone in the ground. Just wait and see what will grow if that person is a Christian. Isn't it amazing? Isn't that just those few words? Aren't they amazing words? Sown in weakness, raised in power. sown in dishonor, raised in glory, sown a natural body, upgraded to a body empowered by the Holy Spirit, just like Jesus one. Still physical, still real, still eating stuff, still you, connected to you, but a transformed you. That should be exciting. If you're not a Christian today, and I don't want to assume everyone's a believer, we always say Grace Church Greenwich is a church for skeptics, inquirers, and believers. And if you're here as a skeptic or an inquirer, you're really welcome, and I hope you'll come back often and find this a good place to investigate. If that's you, I hope you have a sense of missing out, because what is your future? Even on your own belief system, what is your future? If you're an atheist, what, annihilation? One day your atoms just get recycled, that's all. If you're a Hindu or a Buddhist, reincarnation until eventually nothingness, sort of you're absorbed into the great oneness of the ocean, but your personality is completely gone and dissolved and you're long forgotten. Or this, it's better, this is. If it's true, it's much better. And it is true, because Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who've fallen asleep. We're going to take a pause. If you want to ask me a question afterwards, you're welcome, and I will not be nearly as rude as I was to Ben, because that was just a joke. So no stupid questions, but do come and chat to me afterwards. I'd love to answer questions. But we can take a pause, and then we're going to pray together as we fix our eyes on this hope.